Hi, my name is Brook and I'm exhibiting in the 21st Sydney Biennale here at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Sydney. And the 5 sculptures, we have a full kind of ensemble, I suppose, called Tombs of Thought. Within these sculptures, I've invited 4 different artists from around the globe. And really these kind of Tombs of Thought are kind of a vessel or a place to have archives. Not only the archives from museums like the Museum of Applied Arts and Sciences, which we've borrowed, but also the artist archives that really speak to their own stories and kind of alternate kind of narratives than the kind of, dominant narratives that we see around the globe. And what I mean by that is really, instead of the kind of everyday chatter that we see on the news or in the newspaper, these are people from places that have their own stories that are kind of off the radar. This is Shiraz Bayou, who is from Mauritius, based in London. Shiraz, I'm just wondering if you could share, what the experience of me inviting you to be part of this, collaboration here.
Well, first of all, it's a really great moment to sort of be bringing some of the conversations that we've had together, and to bring it to this platform. In terms of the context of the work that we're presenting, it's kind of a crisscross of narratives across the Indian Ocean, so lots of archive material, and it's kind of layered so that it kind of allows the audience to create some of their own stories, because ultimately there is no one single story to tell, right?
Yeah. And some of the objects are from your own collection?
Some of the objects are from my own collection, from my own family's photo collection, as well as some of the amazing objects that we've taken from the Museum of Applied Arts and Science.
Yeah, so what is the crux of your little micro world that you've made?
I guess it's about the complex layerings of people that have been brought together through the big stories of the Indian Ocean.
Specifically around Mauritius?
Specifically about Mauritius, but then it branches out to Madagascar, East Africa, and parts of Australia, because we have some fantastic photographs from this part of the world as well.
Yeah. But you also have film, a beautiful film.
We have a film, showing in one of your sculptures, which is actually normally installed as a cinematic piece, but actually looks so incredible inside your sculpture. And that is a film that was shot in Mauritius in 2015, and it tells the story of the early colonial landscape.
Moyin has traveled from Hokkaido and is an Ainu woman, a performer, and also a reviver of language, Ainu language, and also tattooing.
去年の1年と少し前にブルックと片岡さんが札幌に来たので、その時にお会いして、で一緒に札幌だとか白老だとか旭川だとかというアイヌの記念館に一緒に行って、私のおじいさんの博物館に行ってブルックととても話があって、今回シドニーに来ることになりました。この女性はコーキンというムックルと呼ばれている楽器を弾いている写真で、隣がおじいさんで、この上のは杵つきをしていて、古い家でダンスをしていて、これはお産のシーンの絵はがきですね。これは全部観光目的に作られたもので、本当にそのシーンを写したものではありません。私の映像は自分の入れ墨を入れている映像があるんですが、それをまずこの衣装で東京の電車に乗っていろんな人からの視線を集めて、その後に自宅に帰って入れ墨を入れる映像というのを撮ったんですが、今入れ墨はもう禁止されていて、私しかアイヌの伝統的な入れ墨を入れている人はいないので、見るには私を見るしかなくて、その特別感というものがやっぱりここのシドニーに来て、その入れ墨の映像を皆さんに見てもらうっていうのはすごくスペシャルなことだと思っています。
We're here with Rushdie Anwar, and I've always been very drawn to Rushdie's work because it's very much in keeping with my own kind of ideas and philosophies about kind of other narratives and very special stories of the world. So Rushdie, I was just wondering if you could, first tell us about what it was like to be invited and to show in the sculpture.
I was very pleased to collaborate with Brook in this project especially, and it was fascinating how we came across the ideas how to select the items, especially in the museum, And I went to the museum and I went to their collections and I picked some objects, as you see behind us, the flag and some other items inside the sculptures. And also I came to idea to respond to these items which I borrow, plus my own collection and family collections. I brought it to the sculpture and I put it there, and creating of new works in different approaches like sculpture, ceramics, photographs, some photo paintings, and some other approaches. Also in the same context, responding the context of the what's left behind, creation of the new video work as well, which is a part of the video work is in this sculpture as well. So that was kind of brief idea about how we collecting and selecting these objects.
And what is that history though? Could you tell us briefly about the really important history that you're talking about?
Yes, the history was in a context of the whole dynamic of the whole project for all of us. When I went back and we have discussion about those issues and histories, I went back to the histories of Kurdistan and Iraq in 1917 through the division of Kurdistan, the English as a colony representing in Kurdistan, and went to this area to the current history, which is we see it until today. The coalition, like American or the English, are still there. So it's kind of extending from 1917 to now, and selecting particular political events, what's happened through then. And that was kind of a brief response to the project.
Because I mean, these stories of really leaving your own country and the trauma of that due to quite violent circumstances and then coming to Australia, I mean, that's really very much a part of your work as well, with the chemical bombing.
Yeah, that was also a strong part of the work which I represented here. It was coming back to my personal experience, to experiences. I come from a place called Halabja in 1988, where attacked by chemical weapons by the former Iraqi regime Saddam Hussein. So I come from this place, and then I lost 14 members of my family in that attack. And then after this, came to Australia as a former political refugees to this country, and experiencing and those history, go back to those history of an archival materials, plus what's continuation of this, unfortunately, violence and trauma and aggression in the region as we see it currently, what's happening in the region. So it's a kind of, for me, I was dealing with this project, go back to history and archival history materials, bring it in, plus what's happening, the current situation there, bring past and present together in one project. And that's also based on my personal experience as well.
We're here with Vered Sneer, and Vered is an Israeli, Toronto-based artist. And Vered, I'm just wondering if you could share a little bit about, number one, kind of what it's like to work in this kind of collaborative environment, but also about the work itself.
So I think working with Brook to begin with, before I was introduced to the other artists and their incredible stories, was really about those conflicting ideas of history and how they construct certain ideologies. And this is a passion, I guess, both you and I share, an engagement with an archive, and just to be a part of such an interesting way to talk about history and to think about trauma was really, really special for me. So my work really started with the engagement with the mass collection. I found this coin from 1927 from the British Mandate in Palestine, and was just really drawn to it. The first thing I found out about it in Israeli culture, when you flip a coin, you say Etz and Pali, and that originates from this coin, which I never knew. It's kind of something that you say without knowing its origin. And I was really interested in using this coin to talk about ownership over land throughout history, and how those narratives could be connected, and maybe how different interpretations of historical narratives can have a potential for change and agency, especially in such a conflicted land as Israel. So first of all, I chose to work with earth, Brook sculpture. I felt like this is my element that I would dive into, and this has been a years-long collaboration and conversations between all of us, actually.
But there's a very important story about the T-shirts and archaeology, and I'm just wondering if you could just briefly talk about, how important that is for the context of this.
So I feel like I need to do a little segue as well. So the coin was designed by a British architect residing in Palestine, and he also designed the first archaeological museum in Palestine that is still active this day in Israel. And that way of looking at the land of Israel really interests me, and how it kind of, how you can kind of draw a line between those histories. So for example, there is a site in Israel called Khirbet Kiafa, which is an archaeological site that was dug for 7 years between 2008, and the excavation t-shirts are actually here. And I did kind of a research of how the excavation t-shirts basically portray the narrative over land, and how you narrate what you find in those archaeological sites. So I create this kind of third narrative between the coin, the archaeological museum, and this site in the middle of a heated debate between two archaeological approaches over archaeological findings. One is that what you find has nothing to do with the biblical story, and the other one literally said, one hand we should have a shovel, and on the other hand we should have the Bible. And that means a lot about the Jewish narrative over land ownership, and if we deserve to have that land or do not deserve to have that land.
The reason why I invited them to kind of collaborate, to show within these sculptures, is to not only tell their stories, but to create new connections and webs to the story here. So for example, my mother is Wiradjuri from Western New South Wales, which is an Aboriginal nation. I also have Celtic and Jewish ancestry. But those kind of histories really come together in a kind of a little microcosm. And so that's what we presented here.